Larry Wheels shared this video of fellow bodybuilder Ryan Crowley, who tore his pec tendon here while doing this bench press. Welcome back, everybody. I'm Dr. Brian Sutterer, and this is your #1 source for learning about the unique medical side of the world of sports. I got a bunch of questions from people wanting me to take a look at this, and so in this video, we're gonna talk about pec tendon ruptures, the pec anatomy, and of course, look at the injury footage here from Ryan Crowley. As always, if you enjoy learning about this unique side of sports, please consider subscribing to the channel, and let's get started. Let's walk through here to see what happened, but essentially he's performing an incline bench press, and as he's lowering, this phase of the lift where the bar is coming down is going to be eccentrically loading the pec muscles because it's stretching or lengthening the pec muscle. A concentric muscle activation is when the muscle shortens when you contract it. So whenever I bend my elbow up, that's concentric activation of my biceps. But if I lower a weight down, my biceps is still firing, but it's lengthening as it fires, and that's an eccentric contraction, and muscles and tendons are more susceptible to getting ruptured during that eccentric component of the movement. So here as Crowley starts the lift, his pec muscles that we can see here are tight, they're contracted, but then as he lowers the bar down, remember the insertion of the pec muscle is over here on the humerus, and it originates up on the chest. So as that humerus comes further and further down, that's pulling the insertion of the pec muscle, which is gonna cause it to lengthen it. But again, it's contracting and squeezing this whole time as it stretches, and then pop, that's where we can finally see the rupture. That tendon seems to be most susceptible around 30 degrees of extension, and so if we look from this view, here as he lowers down, he's almost at about neutral, doesn't quite get all the way down low, but this is why pec tendon ruptures almost exclusively happen in males and pretty much always happen in bodybuilders unless it's a really rare circumstance. Let's go to our biodigital anatomy tool to understand the anatomy of the pec muscle. So of course we have a pec major and a pec minor. The pec major is the one that we all think of. That's the bigger, bulky one on top. There's gonna be two components to the pec major. There's a sternal component, which originates here off of the sternum or the breastbone and comes all the way up down to insert on the humerus. And then that's gonna join up with the clavicular head, which is going to originate up here from the clavicle. Both of those components are gonna sort of come down, and you can see what's really interesting about the pec tendon anatomy is it sort of twists over on itself. So this clavicular portion kind of comes down on the top while the sternal portion kind of wraps up underneath on the backside. Of course, this is the humerus or the arm bone where they're attaching. So if we go back to the clip here again, remember that pec is originating up here, it's inserting down about here on the humerus. So as that humerus comes down, lowering to the ground, that's stretching the tendon, until finally we see that rupture occur. Now when it ruptures, it's basically pulling entirely off the bone over here, and so that muscle is gonna recoil all the way back up to its origin near the sternum and the clavicle, and that's why you see the muscle kind of ball up in the chest like that. Most tendons attach into bone pretty straight on in line with the muscle, but the pec tendon is actually pretty unique. This picture shows the humerus or the arm bone, and then a cross section through the pec tendon. So what's really interesting is you can see the pec tendon is actually this U-shaped pattern where it inserts into the bone. This is gonna be the front, and this front layer is mainly from the clavicular portion that's gonna be wrapping up this way, and that upper sternal portion, and then the part in the back is gonna be more from that inferior sternal portion. And what's actually interesting is the way in which this tendon fails is pretty predictable. Essentially, this posterior portion from those inferior sternal fibers is gonna fail first, and then it kind of wraps around the U to where the last portion to fail is typically gonna be that clavicular head. This is one of the orthopedic injuries that truly you wanna have surgery pretty much as fast as possible. Things like an ACL tear, you can honestly delay, and sometimes it's helpful to delay it to do some prehab, but a pec tendon rupture, because of how much it can recoil up in the chest and then stiffen up, you really have to act on pretty quickly. So let's put it all together and review this one more time. So remember that muscles and tendons are weak during eccentric contraction, which means the muscle is contracting while it's being stretched and lengthened. And two, think of that unique anatomy of the pec tendon. So here as Crowley comes down, eccentric firing of the pec muscle as it lengthens. And then the first thing we'll see rupture are those more posterior fibers from the sternal component. It's gonna wrap around that tendon to where the last part to fail is gonna be that clavicular portion. The muscle recoils up closer to its origin site. And as I said, this is truly something that you wanna have seen as soon as possible because surgery is usually very quickly done. That's it for the video. I hope this was educational to learn about that pec muscle and tendon anatomy, and then the typical patterns in which muscles and tendons are more susceptible to failure. Let me know as always any questions or comments down below, and until next time, we'll see you later.